Robbers who are ready to play it big are capable of crazy plots. Brazilian scammers rented a house near a bank and dug an 80-meter tunnel which went all the way to the bank's vault. The tunnel was reinforced by wood and covered by plastic panels. There was even electricity. That's what stealing with comfort means. The underground work continued for 3 months, right under the noses of the police. As a result, the robbers carried away 3.5 tons of money. Swedish criminals organized a robbery in a Hollywood style. They landed on the roof of a cash vault in a helicopter, broke in through a window, and took $5 million. Well, in Nice, robbers had a picnic in the vault, not even collecting and throwing out their empty wine bottles. Impressive? Today, we will tell you about really big things which have been stolen, like a tank, 10-ton bridge, or even a beach. Did you think the era of pirates was over? Unfortunately, ships steal nowadays too. Amazing, but to steal a multi-ton tanker with oil, it's enough to have a few armed people on a small fishing boat. How is that possible? The real record holders for the amount of stolen things are Somali pirates. They were taking over huge ships with their crew. Russian and Japanese tankers, cruise ships, missile cruisers, tugboats, dry cargo ships, and civilian boats. Only in 2011, the losses caused by Somali pirates amounted to $7 billion. That's despite the pirates using small vessels, boats, motorboats, fishing boats. Have you wondered if it's possible to capture a whole ship without leaving a trace? For example, by air. The airlift capacity of the Mi-26 helicopter is 25 tons. Theoretically, 4 such metal birds would be able to lift a 100-ton ship and move it to wherever. But in practice, it's impossible, as the cables attached to the cargo are incapable of lifting it. To do this, the ship would need to be cut into pieces and loaded into the helicopter in pieces. Somali bandits didn't have helicopters, but they did have entire ports to which they hauled their stolen ships. Their ports were controlled by the mafia, which took payouts of up to 85% of the cargo and the hostages. Well, sometimes the cargo was actually precious. For example, in 2008, pirates took over the tanker Serious Start, which was transporting crude oil worth $100 million. What would you say about the audacity of the person who stole a 40-ton tank? And not for combat, but just to ride around in the city. This crazy case occurred in Poland. In this country, there are still a few old Soviet tanks without weaponry, but which work. A T-55 tank was being attached and disattached to a trailer by a worker. That day, he got drunk and a genius idea came to him: to ride the tank on the city's main street among traffic. The idea was unfortunate. By local laws, for such a stunt, a person receives 8 years of prison. Thankfully, the man didn't even inflict minimal damage. Though for drunk driving, he does face a sentence of up to 2 years. He probably regretted his decisions when he sobered up. What do you think? Now we know that it isn't all that hard to steal a 40-ton monster on tracks. Well, this guy, at the age of 19, stole a plane. Rafael Miniquilo armed himself with a trophy Chinese rifle and some ammunition and took over a Boeing 707. In the 60s, passengers weren't at all checked, and Rafael took advantage of this in order to get to Rome. He did indeed manage to fly to Rome, though he stopped a few times to refuel. How? Probably because Rafael immediately released the passengers and was maximally polite with the cabin crew who were his hostages. He even taught one of the stewardesses to play solitaire. Yes, the young man was arrested, but already in Italy. Why did he take over the Boeing? For $200. That was the amount of money he hadn't been paid after a year of service in the US Marine Corps. He became disconcerted and decided to get justice in his own way. He robbed a warehouse and stole a radio set, one which cost $200, and then decided to escape back to his homeland. And it was completely by chance that he made the first transatlantic flight on a hijacked plane in history. A real record. What if we said that in 2018, 2 students managed to steal a plane? Two teens, 14 and 15 years old, ran away from their orphanage, driving to a private airfield on a tractor from which they stole a small plane. They were able to not only take off, but also fly almost 15 miles or 24 kilometers and successfully land it. Of course, they were immediately arrested, but the bravery of these teenagers is impressive. How about the idea of stealing a beach? This happened in Jamaica. No one modified the island's landscape, it's just that from the territory of a worksite of a tourist complex, $108 million worth of sand went missing. And not just regular sand, but a special type which is used to cover coastlines. Clean, white sand for a beach is of high value, and so much was stolen that it could cover a coastline 1,312 feet or 400 meters long. That's approximately 500 trucks which were filled with sand. Who could have been the culprit? Well, the police are still working on the case, as the main suspects are the competing construction companies which build resorts, and there are a lot of them. There's still one question left unanswered. How was so much sand stolen quietly and without leaving a trace? What do you think? Do you have any versions? What about stealing a 10-ton bridge? You can't just take it and move it to wherever you want. Or can you? You won't believe it, but this situation occurred in the Czech Republic, not far from the city of Sokolov. One fantastic morning, the city's residents woke up to find their pedestrian bridge located above the train tracks missing, as though it had dissolved. This structure weighed around 10 tons, so like a truck. How could this object be taken apart and moved in one night? But that's not all. The robbers also stole 656 feet or 200 meters of the track, as well as all the screws which attached them to the railway ties. In reality, it was all very simple. The robbers used a crane and, under the guise of repair work, dismantled the bridge in plain sight. It's likely that the robbers then gave the metal to be melted and received a lot of money for it. But robbers are capable of even more despicable acts. This way, a Catholic cathedral in San Francisco had its bell stolen. It was really big. It weighed around 2.7 tons. That's like carrying away an Eldorado Cadillac. The bell had historical significance. It was cast in Baltimore in 1899 and survived the 1962 fire. Well, it didn't survive the theft, though all possible precautions were taken to preserve it. From the 70s, the ministers of the cathedral used an audio system which imitated the sound of the bell ringing. The bell itself was being stored on a wooden platform. One day, it disappeared without a trace. The clerics nor the parishioners noticed when exactly it was stolen. It seems everyone was just used to it being in the same spot and didn't pay attention to it. So when exactly it was stolen also remains a mystery. A similar case happened in Scotland, where on the Fenana Islands there is an almost totally destroyed stone chapel. The bell was also stolen from there. It was cast back in the early Middle Ages. The exact date is unknown, but based off some evidence, it may be 1,000 years old. According to local legends, the bell is cursed. Do you think the robbers will be punished by mysterious forces for what they've done? Stolen cars don't surprise anyone nowadays, but we'll try to do so. As in the Russian city of Khabarovsk in 2001, a Toyota Camry was stolen. Nothing unusual, right? Well, the thing is, it was stolen together with its garage. The Toyota was being kept in a sea transport container which weighed 20 tons. For this theft, a crane and a truck would have been needed. Well, and the crane must have been making quite some noise. But nobody saw such things anywhere nearby. The garage and the car disappeared without a trace, like in one of David Copperfield's tricks. For the Russian, it was as easy as putting a pack of matches into their pocket. Even now, the car is priced starting from $27,000 US, while then it was even more expensive. The audacity and savviness of robbers is sometimes shocking. Action movies can be filmed based off them. One day, it became known that the Ghost 3 yacht had been stolen from the port of Mamaris. The cost of the boat? $2 million US. The plan was simple. A group of robbers from another country rents the yacht, after which they take off the tracking system and place it on a rubber boat. But don't think you can get away with this. The robbers were caught, and it was figured out that they had already stolen 49 yachts. Are you astonished by their cunningness? Well, then think about the length of their prison sentence. Well, the people who really were impressive were house thieves from the state of Oregon. They stole an entire house whole. The owner didn't live in the house on a regular basis, and one day he came to find an empty lot in place of his home. After all, the house was 1,194 square feet or 111 square meters. It seems the house was lifted simultaneously using a few super powerful floor jacks and a crane, after which it was moved onto a special platform. Though how the house remained intact is a mystery, and driven away. For the first while, the police couldn't even believe it happened, but then declared the house wanted. And the search for the structure was successful. For some reason, the robbers were not ever found. They had left the house at a distance of a bit more than 12.4 miles or 20 kilometers from the crime scene. Why was it left? What do you think? Well, now prepare for an actual shock. In Russia, in the city of Chita, robbers stole and tried to give away as scrap metal 3 military rocket systems. The S-200 is an anti-aircraft missile system which had been used from the end of the 60s, it's still used in some places, for defense of the large territories from bomber planes. So these rockets have a high explosive fragmentation warhead which affects a large area. While scrapping the metal, one of the 3 rockets detonated and the explosion was just stunning. 2 workers of the metal scrapping service became victims, and 1 more received severe injuries. The other 2 miraculously did not explode. So finding out about the most strange and audacious thefts is quite interesting, but they should definitely not ever be replicated personally. Well, which one of these cases impressed you the most? Leave your opinion in the comments, like this video, and subscribe to the channel.